Yeah.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, I would like to welcome you to this year's Asia Pacific Commemoration of International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Before we begin, please allow me to make a few housekeeping announcements. Online participants are welcome to use the chat box to share your comments, insights, and experiences. In addition to international sign interpretation, there is also a live transcription function built into Zoom, which you can find in the tool panel of the Zoom window. For all speakers and participants, please try to be succinct and to speak clearly to ensure more accurate sign language interpretation and captioning. Without further ado, it is now my honor to invite the United Nations Undersecretary General and Executive Secretary of ESCAP, Ms. Amrita Salisha Elishabana, to deliver the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, distinguished participants, friends, colleagues. I'm very delighted to welcome all of you, both colleagues that are attending in person in this room, as well as colleagues attending online, to this year's Asia Pacific Commemoration of International Day of Persons with Disabilities. This year's global theme for the commemoration is United in Action to Rescue and Achieve the SDGs for, with, and by persons with disabilities. This theme emphasizes the urgency with which we must act to attain the SDGs and places persons with disabilities at the center of this endeavor. We cannot successfully reach SDGs while leaving behind the estimated 16% of the population, or 1/16 of the population, who are persons with disabilities. Moreover, recognizing the private sector as the primary driver of GDP or of the economy, production, as well as employment, their active involvement is very, very important or key to achieving the SDGs. As part of today's commemoration, we are proud to launch the publication entitled Disability at a Glance 2023, Catalyst of Change, Disability Inclusion in Business in Asia and the Pacific. This report provides an overview of the status of disability-inclusive business practices in our region, showcasing numerous successful examples from both within the region and beyond. It emphasizes that now is the time for businesses, governments, and other stakeholders to shift their approach to ensure that businesses actively promote disability rights and inclusion. Disability inclusive business is not only a matter of human rights, but also a practical issue, pragmatic issue. From a human rights perspective, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability highlights the role of businesses and the private sector in eliminating discrimination, ensuring accessibility, and enhancing opportunities for work and employment. From a practical standpoint, the full inclusion of persons with disabilities in business makes sound economic sense. Persons with disabilities represent a substantial portion of potential consumers, job applicants, employees, as well as suppliers. By adopting disability inclusion practices, businesses may benefit from access to an untapped talent pool, improve productivity, workplace accessibility, innovation and profitability, strengthen supplier diversity, enhance delivery of goods and services, as well as closer contact with a vast market and access to new market potentials. Furthermore, with an increasing focus on sustainable development, as well as its pillars of environmental, social, and governance, especially as it relates to performance of businesses, particularly in relation to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, the demand for disability inclusion is ever growing. Failing to be inclusive not only carries reputational risk, but also legal implication for businesses as more governments enforce laws around disability inclusion. In our region, we have a rich history of innovative and collective efforts to promote disability inclusive development. The Jakarta Declaration on the Asian Pacific Decade of Persons with Disabilities 2023-2032, adopted by ESCAP member state last year, represents the latest commitment of governments in the region. The Jakarta Declaration recognizes the potential of disability inclusive business and calls for the active involvement of private sector as a key driver of change. The Jakarta Declaration urges governments in the region to take several actions concerning the private sector. If I may just list a few here, including adopting disability inclusive public procurement policies. This is to encourage universal design and accessibility in publicly procured infrastructure, technology, as well as services. The other one is providing policy incentives for private companies to integrate disability inclusion into their workforce, operation, product, services, market activities, supply chain, etc. And another one is facilitating the development of industry guidelines and protocols, particularly in the media and entertainment sector. This is also to foster diversity and inclusion, as well as eliminate content that could lead to discrimination, stigmatization, and misconception of persons with disabilities. So in this context, we are pleased to include, as part of today's commemoration, the screening of short films that highlight the potential positive impact of media. I would like to thank and to also extend our appreciation to the support of the Australian Embassy. We will view several winners from the Focus on Ability Film Festival, which employs films to challenge people's beliefs and perception about the lives of people with disabilities. Yes, we will see the screen of this film shortly. So distinguished participants, colleagues and friends, today's commemoration aims to facilitate important conversation as well as partnership to advance this disability inclusion in business practices. It brings together, as you can see from the audience here, as well as those connected online, not only from governments, but also private sector, the businesses, our UN colleagues, organization of persons with disabilities, as well as other civil society stakeholders, quite a wide range of participants and stakeholders. We are certainly committed to continuing the strong collaboration with member states, with all key stakeholders to speed up, to accelerate progress on SDGs, as well as the implementation of the Jakarta Declaration. We also look forward to forging new partnership, new collaboration with businesses, private sector, their association, as well as all of you to promote the inclusion of persons with disabilities in all their diversity. So again, with that, I would like to thank you again for your participation and active also contribution, and let the Asia Pacific commitment to make the right real campaign be a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ibu Armida, for your opening statement and setting the stage for our conversations today on promoting disability-inclusive business and achieving the SDGs for, with, and by persons with disabilities. As Ibu Armida mentioned, as part of today's commemoration, ESCAP is proud to launch the 2023 Disability at a Glance publication, Catalysts of Change, Disability Inclusion in Business in Asia and the Pacific. This publication highlights why disability-inclusive business is so important and shares good practices from the region and beyond. We will now view a short video showcasing some of the findings of the report. Please enjoy.
Welcome to a new era of sustainable development in Asia and the Pacific, where we champion disability-inclusive business. From small enterprises to multinational corporations, businesses across the region are discovering the value of disability-inclusive practices as a catalyst for economic growth, innovation, and equality. ESCAP's Disability at a Glance publication, Catalysts of Change, Disability Inclusion in Business in Asia and the Pacific, offers insights into the current context of disability-inclusive business, presents the business case for inclusion, and offers practical recommendations. Disability-inclusive business is not merely a compliance checklist and goes beyond corporate social responsibility efforts. Disability-inclusive businesses ensure inclusion across the entire business value chain, respecting the rights of persons with disabilities and engaging persons with disabilities as leaders, employees, consumers, suppliers, distributors, subject experts, and valued stakeholders. Disability-inclusive practices can reap multifaceted benefits, including improved performance, innovation, access to an untapped market of consumers with disabilities, and an enhanced reputation, all of which can lead to greater profitability. The inclusion of persons with disabilities as employees throughout a business can lead to more diverse and inclusive corporate culture, more accessible products and service designs, and enhanced productivity and employee engagement. As consumers, persons with disabilities are often overlooked, even though the market of persons with disabilities is estimated to comprise 16% of the population. The potential consumers of universally designed products and services is even broader and includes friends, family members, and allies of persons with disabilities, older persons, people who are temporarily injured, and families with young children. Disability inclusion is not just good for business. It is also required under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and highlighted in other global and regional frameworks, such as the 2030 Agenda. Regionally, ESCAP members adopted the Jakarta Declaration on the Asian and Pacific Decade of Persons with Disabilities, 2023 to 2032, which recognizes the potential of disability-inclusive business and calls for the engagement of the private sector as a key change agent. So, how can businesses implement disability inclusion? Disability inclusive business is being practiced through pioneering initiatives in leadership, operations, human resources, procurement, and support for entrepreneurs with disabilities. The policies and programs of stakeholders also play a critical role in creating a supportive ecosystem for disability-inclusive business, including programs from governments, organizations of persons with disabilities, civil society organizations, industry associations, and investors. Let us make disability inclusion the norm in business, not the exception. By working together, we can build a more inclusive, resilient, and prosperous Asia-Pacific region. Join us in making the right real for everyone.
We hope you enjoyed this informative and inspiring video. To mark the launch of the publication, I would like to invite all of the speakers for today's commemoration to now join ESCAP's Executive Secretary for a photo in front of the stage here. So at this point, if our panelists for agenda item 2 could please make their way to the rostrum. Dear participants, this concludes our opening session. We will now have a panel discussion focused on the theme of the publication, Disability Inclusive Business. This agenda item will be moderated by Dr. Srinivas Tata, Director of the Social Development Division of ESCAP. Dr. Tata, please, the floor is yours.
Just give us 1 minute to seat our speakers. Thank you very much, Madam Executive Secretary, for really providing the backdrop to this very important day and setting the stage. I'm delighted to moderate this panel discussion on promoting disability inclusive business in Asia Pacific. ESCAP chose this important topic as the focus of our publication, biennial publication called Disability at a Glance this year, not only because it's one of the priority areas for action identified in the Jakarta Declaration, which was adopted in 2022, but also because we have seen the momentum building. And I think the momentum building in terms of acknowledging the role of the private sector, the urgency of achieving the SDGs, and the importance of the inclusion of persons with disabilities effectively into this process. As we have embarked on the first year of the new Asian and Pacific Decade of Persons with Disability, today's commemoration, and specifically this panel, offers an opportunity for us to begin to reflect on the lessons learned from the success of the previous decades and to consider the new opportunities that exist today for developing disability inclusive business. I would also like to tie our panel to the global theme for this year's commemoration of the International Day of the Persons with Disabilities, which is united in action to rescue and achieve the SDGs for, with, and by persons with disabilities. As the Executive Secretary Ibu Armida pointed out, we cannot achieve the SDGs without persons with disabilities or without the private sector. But most importantly, we cannot achieve the SDGs without the private sector being inclusive of persons with disabilities. Our distinguished panel today comprises of representatives from Parliament, the private sector, business networks, and UN entities. Each member of the panel brings a unique perspective and valuable insights to this table. I'm eager to facilitate a dynamic and informative discussion and explore how concerted efforts across sectors can help contribute to advancing disability inclusive business in our region. I extend a warm welcome to our esteemed panelists, and we look forward to an enriching dialogue that lies ahead. For the panel discussion, we will first hear an overview presentation. I will introduce each panel before I invite them to speak and ask a question, which they will have 4 minutes to respond to in the first round. I will then ask a second round of questions to all the panelists, providing the panelists with about 3 minutes to answer. And that will allow enough time, I'm sure, for interventions from the floor from both participants in the room and the very large number of online participants that we have. And I note that there are a considerable number online too. And so we really want to keep enough time for comments both from the floor here and online. So without much ado, I would like to start perhaps with an overview presentation on the key findings of the Disability at a Glance 2023, the Catalysts of Change, Disability Inclusion and Business in Asia and the Pacific, which is the report which was alluded to and you watched a short video on, but I'll request Ms. Sai to give us some of the key highlights of that report to set the stage for this discussion. Over to you, Sai.
Thank you, Dr. Tata. Excellencies, distinguished guests, I'm very pleased to introduce the latest edition of ESCAP's Disability at a Glance. May we request the PowerPoint to be put up by our IT team? Yes. Disability at a Glance 2023, entitled Catalyst of Change, Disability Inclusion in Business in Asia and the Pacific, provides an in-depth review of disability inclusive business. The publication presents fundamental concepts, key components of fostering disability inclusive business, including good practices and data, and provides recommendations for business, governments, and other stakeholders. What is disability inclusive business? A disability inclusive business seeks to promote and mainstream the rights of persons with disabilities into all phases of business value chain, ensuring their meaningful participation and their representative organizations in all their diversity as leaders, employees, customers, suppliers, and distributors, as well as entrepreneurs, experts, and valued stakeholders. We have just heard about the benefits of disability disability inclusive business, including access to an untapped talent pool, improved productivity, innovation, and profitability, strengthened supplier diversity, enhanced delivery of goods and services, closer contact with a vast consumer market, and boosted business reputation. Now let's look at the opportunities. Global trends on sustainable development and increasing focus on the environmental, social, and governance performance of businesses has led to many changes in the workforce and business processes. A greater understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in business provides opportunities for bringing disability inclusion into mainstream business practice. The shift from business as usual during the COVID-19 pandemic and the rise in new technologies have provided opportunities for the public and private sectors to consider the design and delivery of products and services for greater accessibility. Moreover, younger generations are gaining spending power and demanding inclusion and diversity from companies. In this context, ESCAP's 2023 edition of Disability at a Glance outlines 5 key elements for fostering disability inclusive business. First, leadership. Leadership and top management play a critical role to advance an inclusive culture across all levels of a business through vision setting, establishing operational systems, policies, and budgets for disability inclusion. Second, operations, including universal design in core products, is crucial for companies' value chains. New law, policy, regulations, and collaborations among development institutions, governments, and businesses are driving accessibility across sectors like technology, tourism, finance in the Asia-Pacific region. Third, human resources. Disability inclusive human resource practice needs to begin with attracting candidates with disabilities, followed by accessible recruitment, and then continue through the employee's career by providing reasonable accommodation, creating career and leadership development opportunities, and collecting data on employees with disabilities to inform talent management. Fourth, procurement. Business play a crucial role in supporting disability inclusive enterprises. They can support entrepreneurs with disabilities by promoting inclusive supply chains and advocating for greater disability inclusion within their supply networks. Governments can also promote accessibility and preferential contracting through their procurement policies. We often call this disability inclusive public procurement. Fifth, entrepreneurship. Governments can offer support through funding programs for business startups or expansions. Civil society organizations, including those led by persons with disabilities, can raise capital and offer support networks, nurturing talent among entrepreneurs with disabilities. Impact Capital is beginning to invest in businesses that support these entrepreneurs, providing direct funding to startups that have the potential to become industry leaders. Finally, addressing the gaps in disability inclusive business in Asia-Pacific region requires the collective efforts of businesses, governments, financial institutions, and CSOs. Allow me to highlight a few key recommendations from the publication. For business, it's important to implement a disability inclusion strategy as a core business strategy with indicators and timelines, and share good practices and learn from other businesses on disability inclusive business efforts. Governments are encouraged to support the implementation of disability inclusive business through a whole of government approach involving various ministries, agencies, and local governments to develop and implement relevant policies and regulations. In particular, government can utilize public procurement to promote employment and entrepreneurship of persons with disabilities, as well as accessible goods and services. It's critical to consult with stakeholders, including persons with disabilities and their representative organizations, when developing and implementing disability inclusion strategies set by businesses and government policy making. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few highlights from the publication. If you'd like to read further, in detail, we have publications available outside the meeting room, as well as a QR code available for you to download the publication. Thank you very much. Look forward to further discussions.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Saisai, for succinctly explaining the key findings and recommendations of the report, and which also helps us then proceed smoothly and segue into the panel discussion. So we will now begin our panel discussion. I'll introduce each distinguished speaker and ask them their first question and request them to keep their responses, if possible, to 4 minutes. Our first panelist, and who's very well known to us, is Senator Monthian Buntan, who has been a member of the Senate of the Royal Thai Parliament since 2008. Senator Monthian has been working for inclusion of persons with disabilities for over 20 years with the Thai government and civil society organizations, and as a member of the UN CRPD committee from 2013 to 2020. Senator Monthian, you have been a great supporter of ESCAP's work on inclusion of persons with disabilities, and we are very grateful for your guidance. My question to you, Senator Monthian, is what government policy measures or initiatives have proven effective in encouraging business to adopt disability inclusive practices that go beyond employment? And how can governments further support and enhance these efforts? Over to you, Senator.
Thank you, Dr. Tata, and many thanks to ESCAP for making a prime move on this very important subject, as there shall be no bigger wave than disability inclusive business to help achieve disability inclusive development, as stated in Jakarta Declaration, because this region is moved by, in practice, the business, it's a decade of business sector that moves beyond the border of each country. And I'm very honored to be given this opportunity to highlight some of what I think could serve and has been proven effective to promote a disability inclusive business. We could say that most, if not all, governments in this region have some form of legislation or policy in support of employment. But it is less so to see the business environment that is more inclusive or accessible to persons with disabilities. So most persons with disabilities are expected to be either just employees or perhaps consider some form of customers. I could see that some countries have come beyond that. In some countries that I may not name for the time being, has gone beyond the employee status by introducing a more or less entrepreneurship incentives towards persons with disabilities, with loans, some loan for persons with disabilities to start their company. And I believe India has gone to embrace the concept of public procurement policy, which is built into the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016. Of course, I'm still waiting to see a more concrete result, but I think we have seen a very good intention to see that public procurement is, in fact, in favor of creating accessibility within the society, and the business sectors are going to have to be obliged by that. We also see some countries moving into the direction of promoting persons with disabilities to become either business entrepreneurs or suppliers of business. In Thailand, for example, 4 years ago, the parliament passed a law on social enterprise, not only in favor of employment of persons with disabilities and the other advantage group, but also to promote the business of persons with disabilities through preferential treatment in the public procurement policy. I also could recollect the concept of goods and services that are required to be made accessible. I believe in China, we have seen more concrete result after the Barrier-Free Act, I believe 10 years ago. You're seeing now products out of China with accessibility features. If you're familiar with some chat program like WeChat, is quite accessible to many of us with disabilities. And the list goes on with many other countries. What we are thinking and we're still longing to see is persons with disabilities in the leadership post of the business. I have not seen such in the clear multinational or big companies within our region yet. I think with this ESCAP publication, we're going to see that soon, or unless someone could tell me who is in the leadership post in the big company with disability. So I think I have touched 5 points, maybe not in order, but I think we are moving into the right direction. I think business inclusion is the most promising key area to achieve disability inclusive development. Other areas are either too difficult to achieve, lack money and incentives, and also have to go through very bureaucratic process of government. I hate to say that, I'm from government sector myself. But we have to move beyond just complain. And I wish that we could help with a big campaign, continuous campaign to make the right real. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Monsignor, for your insightful remarks and suggestions, noting very much that 2 years back when we started discussing the end of the decade, you were the first one who was talking about the big opportunity of disability inclusive business. And I'm very happy it's been reflected in the Jakarta Declaration. I would like to move to our next set of panelists who will be joining us online. I would like to introduce Ms. Masako Okikira and Ms. Michiko Aono from Deloitte, Japan. Ms. Masako has cerebral palsy. She has a range of experiences working in many fields and now mainly trains leaders with disabilities in developing countries. She has also served as a JICA expert and as an advisor on disability projects for the Nippon Foundation. She now works on the promotion of employment and empowerment of employees with disabilities. Her colleague, Ms. Aono, is a certified psychologist and a member of the working group on developing and securing job coaches of the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare of the Government of Japan. She has 10 years of experience creating an inclusive environment for employees with intellectual, developmental, and psychiatric disabilities at Deloitte, Japan. A warm welcome to both of you, Ms. Masako, as well as Ms. Aono. Truly a warm welcome. And I would like to pose my first question to you. How has Deloitte mainstreamed disability inclusion in its operations and workforce? And what are the challenges that you face in adopting disability inclusive practices, and how did you overcome these? So over to you. I think it's going to be Ms. Aono who's going to answer, or together. So really looking forward to your response, ma'am.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. Can I explain with my slide?
Can we have the slides?
Thank you. Can you see my slide clearly? Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're muted, Ms. Aono.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, now we can hear
Very
you.
much.
Please go
I'm
ahead.
sorry
Please
to be
go ahead.
late. Thank you. At first, I will explain with my slide about what Deloitte Japan does for disability inclusion. In Deloitte Japan, we call members with disabilities members with diverse abilities. Deloitte Japan has 3 core management philosophy. The philosophy are fairness to society, innovation for clients, talent of people. Therefore, I believe that we have a culture that promotes social significance, the ability to provide value to clients, and the success of diverse members. Deloitte Japan has 2 million professionals. Therefore, we believe that the initiatives that we carry out at Deloitte Japan may have a great impact by being passed down to our acquaintances, family, and clients. So we joined the Valuable 500 in 2021, and our CEO committed to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion. In Deloitte Japan, there are over 300 members with diverse abilities. And 94% members hold mental or intellectual disability certificate. Also, 95% of members who are in Deloitte Japan 2 years ago has retained and continue to work together. Moreover, we take an effort to create a workplace where we can work together. For example, we train all the employee can take the reasonable accommodation, and we assign the professional for foster inclusion, like job coaches or psychiatric social worker and clinical psychologists, and provide a special consultation team. Our members with diverse abilities work at diverse areas. Work performed by our members with diverse abilities are written in the left. We tend to increase the jobs in skill area enclosed in blue and more closely to business core. Having worked with many neurodiverse members, such as those with autism spectrum disorders, with or without intellectual disabilities, we believe that we can work to promote the employment of members with these diverse abilities who will become more active digitally area. So this year, we started the Digital Talent Development Intensive Program for people with diverse abilities because we focus on their ability. At last, let me conclude. Foster disability inclusion has lots of eminence, not only for people with diverse abilities, but our entity's core. Moreover, customization for individual may be profit with us in the future. Deloitte's research tells us the benefit of inclusive culture. Inclusive leaders make an impact on the business, more likely innovative, adaptive, and make high performance and financial merit. Also, if we really promote foster disability inclusion, we will be able to achieve realization of our group management philosophy or create the new value in the society and be the undisputed leader. And it will be new business in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aono and Ms. Okakira, for sharing Deloitte's journey towards disability inclusion in its operations. Your insights are truly appreciated. Our next panelist, thank you. Our next panelist is Mr. Murtaza Khan, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Bangladesh Business and Disability Network. The Bangladesh Business and Disability Network, or BBDN, is a membership-based private sector-led nonprofit organization. Mr. Khan also serves on the steering committee of the ILO Global Business and Disability Network. So, Mr. Khan, my question to you is, from your network's perspective, can you share success stories of businesses who are members of your network who you think have effectively implemented disability inclusive strategies, and what lessons can others learn from these successes and examples? How can business networks foster a culture of knowledge exchange and mutual support so that we can lead to cross-adoption of disability inclusive practices across industries? Over to you.
Thank you very much for your question. So in Bangladesh, we primarily work in the formal economy, and the biggest sector there is the ready-made garments industry, so the clothing manufacturing side. And that has also been the most inclusive industry that we've been able to work in. And inclusion from the perspective of course, what was presented, leadership commitment, looking at the built environment, and also some very interesting partnerships, particularly in terms of the influence of the global supply chain as well, where multinationals have worked with their local partners, who are, of course, suppliers to them, to work on skills building initiatives, and again, in partnership with local NGOs to make sure that people with disabilities are getting industry-demanded skills development, who can then be included into the world of work. Obviously, taking reasonable accommodation procedures and the appropriate policy changes also into consideration. Beyond our ready-made garments, we have also seen good examples coming up in the retail space. For example, one of the largest retail chains in the country, Shopno, have become inclusive with a very ambitious target of 10% inclusion. They're not quite there yet, but making progress. Companies like Domino's Pizza, where we're seeing a lot of people with speech and hearing impairment performing very well within their operations, and they're keen to try to see how to expand that. Similarly, recently, we've started working in the hospitality sector, starting the journey with Le Méridien, which is under the Marriott Group. And the idea here is to for them to become a trailblazer, because there are very few examples within hospitality at the moment, and then to see how to widen that out within the broader Marriott hotels and then across the hospitality industry. Within the IT sector as well, there have been a lot of job fairs and things undertaken, also by many NGOs and in partnership with the Bangladesh Computer Council, for instance. And in terms of the critical success factors behind these initiatives, leadership cannot be overstated, and how that permeates throughout the organization, and of course, sensitizing at every appropriate level, because once that commitment comes, the rest of the resources tend to follow. And really building that ecosystem of collaboration that's required, whether it's local NGOs, disability expert organizations, business disability networks, organizations of people with disabilities. I think leveraging their expertise and partnering to run programs and build capacity and disability confidence of an organization is really valuable. And quickly on the second part of your question about how business networks can foster a culture of knowledge exchange, as we are under the Employers Federation, which is the official constituent of the ILO in country, representing employers next to the Ministry of Labor and the workers' representatives, we utilize that convening authority to really connect to other associations, collate those best practices. And when employers speak about this to other employers, it really has a very meaningful impact. The simple idea of, if I can do it, you can too. So I will maybe pause here for now and continue later. Thank you.
Definitely come back to you, Mr. Murtaza. I think your insights are so valuable on how you've fostered a culture of knowledge exchange and mutual support. And I really look forward to coming back to you in the second round on further reflection on how we can take this forward. Our next panelist is Ms. Methavi Thatsana Satyankit, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Vulcan Coalition. Ms. Methavi is the CEO of the Vulcan Coalition, which is an AI startup driven by abilities of persons with disabilities. Currently, the coalition has successfully created career opportunities for more than 500 persons with disabilities, actively advancing the artificial intelligence industry forward with their inclusion. So, Ms. Methavi, from your experience, can you share examples of initiatives where multi-partnership efforts have led to companies adopting inclusive business practices for persons with disabilities, and what opportunities the digitalization offer for promoting disability inclusion in business? Over to you, Ms. Methavi.
Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. It's obvious that the technology could enhance inclusive society. As a technology entrepreneur, I see benefit of technology to promote inclusive in business segment in many perspectives. For the first perspective is employment. The technology can unlock physical limitation of disabled person and become a tool that connect people with disability with their non-disabled colleagues. In our company, we have 10 software engineers. 2 of them are blind. So we can use the technology so both of them, the buy and then buy software engineer, they can collaborate together. And also the leverage of the technology, business can access to the new pool of workforce who have a lot of potential and also have the determinations. For example, for some of our AI contact center, in order to develop the AI contact center, we need a lot of workforce to prepare the language data so we can have a great input to train AI. Currently, we have a lot of workforce who are disabled person, who are blind or mobile ability, who work together to prepare those type of data sets. And they are the one who are the main workforce that can help us achieve the accurate AI. And beyond the employment, for the accessible product and service, as I mentioned, that technology can unlock many barriers for people with disability. However, many digital service and products that business have developed still not conveniently accessed by people with disability, especially blind people, which are potential group of customers. The main reason because many software engineers, they might not know how to develop the accessible software. So what we try to do, we partner with our coalition, and we try to educate the software engineer network so they will know how they can develop and design the program that be accessible for people with disability. For example, we try to do the e-learning for people with disability. We exploring the e-learning program in the Thai market, and we cannot find the one that's suitable for all types of people with disability. Since we have mainly we have 3 types of people with disability in our companies. The one are deaf, mobile ability, and the blind. So it's like we need to find the platform that's suitable for all of them. Then when we cannot find it, we have to hire the software engineer by ourselves to develop it. And it's like, and we think if all of the software engineer in other company and in other business, they have this kind of knowledge, it can help them to develop the more accessible software, and it will help the people with disability will use their life more conveniently. And in order to achieve the PWD inclusive, I think it's important to join force between many partners in public, private, and people with disability community. For example, I just currently held the Thai PBS, they are the national media, to host the hackathon event to find the solution for the public and private sector to hiring PWD in their organization. So it's like, it's at this event, we be able to invite the large corporate in Thailand and also for the private organization to join force, and we try to brainstorm what is the barrier that all of them cannot hire people with disability, and what is the idea that we can go and moving forward to find a way to increase the employment. And another example is how we partner with Bangkok administration to use government procurement to promote PWD employment. You might not know that currently the hotline of Bangkok administration 1555, they all operate by people with disability for 24 hours and 5 days, 5 days a week. So we have the AI software that can give the opportunity for PWD for the blind people and mobile ability people. They can stay at their home, they log in at our platform, and they can be the one who help Bangkok administration to answer all type of the question and also to handle the problem. And after that, we report to the problem to the Taffy Fongdu platform, and so the Bangkok administration can solve all the problem. And also we develop the AI to assist people with disability. So it's like for blind people, they can be able to search for the answer more quickly by using the voice. And I think this is an example how we integrate the technologies and how we collaborate with the government organization to give more inclusive opportunity for PWD. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Methavi. You gave really inspiring examples highlighting the role of technology and collaboration in enhancing disability inclusive business in Thailand. A lot of information to chew upon for the second round. Last but not least, our final panelist of this round is my old friend and colleague, Ms. Joni Simpson, who's a senior specialist on gender equality and non-discrimination at work at the International Labour Organization's regional office in Asia Pacific. In her role, we all know she provides policy analysis, technical guidance and support on gender equality and inclusion in the world of work in our region. And this includes the ILO Global Business and Disability Network. And she also, through the promotion of key gender equality and inclusion labor standards. So Joni, my question to you is, how do you provide this technical support to business? How does ILO provide technical support to business, aiming to create more disability inclusive workplaces through your global business network? And how can businesses and other stakeholders engage or participate more in these efforts? Over to you, John.
Thank you, Dr. Tata, and to ESCAP, thank you very much for having us here. I will pick up on the question, just give a little bit of information on the Global Business and Disability Network, and I'm very pleased to see Bangladesh here, but also China out in the room as well from the National Business and Disability Network. And as has already been said, so many companies are really showing leadership in this area across their supply chains and becoming role models for disability inclusion. And companies learning from other companies is, or peer-to-peer learning is really one of the most powerful means of expanding inclusion on all levels in business. So the ILO started the Global Business and Disability Network back in 2010 to support companies of all sizes and types in making their employment and policies and practices more inclusive of persons with disabilities around the world. And the network promotes increased awareness about the positive relationship between disability inclusion and business success. And it does this by providing a platform for businesses to learn from each other, share from each other as global and national leaders. We're talking about the importance of change agents or leaders. Accessing country-specific business and disability insights, that's possible through the platform as well. By generating access to cutting-edge knowledge, for example, on digitalization and inclusion of persons with disabilities, and showcasing companies who are disability champions. And I can just mention that we recently launched from the Global Business and Disability Network a good practice report that came out, I think, last week, which highlights some of those best practices. And I think, this has been just brought up, the importance of good practice. And the members decide what the topics discussed are. So some of the key topics that are being discussed and studied are workplace adjustments, recruitment, digital accessibility, neurodiversity, mental health at work, among others. And so the agenda is set by the members, and the ILO provides this technical support of either guiding the research, but the members are promoting the agenda. And of course, on the global front, a global network is vital, but really at the national level, there are also many more opportunities for practical sharing and learning in a specific cultural context. So the ILO has Global Business and Disability Network members at the national level, 38 of them, of which 9 are in this region. And the Global Business and Disability Network has its own charter. It's got a self-assessment tool for companies. So if you're interested, you can find tools. There are e-learning modules as well. And companies are sharing their own reports and tools on this platform. So it's a way of getting information out there. And the network at the national level and has been brought up here helps tap into local knowledge and very much, with regards to how things work. I mean, it's much more practical to have national know-how. And so these exchanges can really and are really leading to employment of inclusion and of persons with disabilities. So the ILO would, to finish, ILO would be really keen to see the network expand further. We just organized late last month our annual conference, which is the 13th conference, which was looking at the importance of inclusion of persons with disabilities in ESG. So, making sure, and that was raised in the report, making sure that this is coming hand in hand alongside ESG and very strongly. And if there is any interest in having more information, I think we can share the Global Business and Disability Network link. And if you'd like, I'd be ready to answer questions moving ahead. So I hand back to you, Dr. Tata. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joni, for your insights and also for giving details on the role played by ILO. In the second round, we've covered the first round of questions. I'd like to return to each one of the panelists for a follow-up questions, and I'm going to keep this pretty flexible. I would ask the panelists to perhaps reflect on what the other panelists have said, and to share maybe one policy, most importantly, that can have a greatest impact to further promote disability inclusive business in the region. So, Senator Monthian, can I come to you first? And I request all of you to keep your response preferably in 2 minutes, because I am sure a lot of our audience have questions for you.
Thank you. One thing I think that I would like to talk, and it's going to be a great complementary factor to disability inclusive business, and it actually is number 4 point of this 5 key points presented by Ms. Chai Chai, and it's procurement. I could see the power of public procurement that could have immense impact upon business practice that could be or could not be disability inclusive. The reason I did not mention other cases rather than China case is because I believe that China has something about procurement. I don't have any evidence yet, but I could cite good examples from big 3 transnational companies on ICT. Big 3s are all in the United States, right? Apple, Google, Microsoft. I would say 99.9% of their in-house software development are accessible. Why? Because of the public procurement policy. In Thailand, 99.9% of software developed in Thailand are inaccessible, because we are still in the very primary stage of pushing for disability inclusive public procurement. So I leave it for us to discuss. This is a very core, one of the core components to push for further disability inclusive business. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a very important thing that you've raised, and I think we're going to reflect on this. I'd like to reach out now to our colleagues online, Ms. Okukira and Ms. Aono. Do you have any reflections further on what you heard from other panelists? And if you'd like to focus on one key policy within your company that really made a difference, what would that be?
Okay. One key. Hold on a second. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Okukira, loud and clear, please.
Okay. You know, our company had a CEO made a official announcement to keep, how can I say, to keep DEI and including disability issues in main business at our companies. So that's a very big influence on us. But anyway, you know, employment regarding employment of persons with disability, you know, by now, government, NGO, and DPO have been working very hard, but it's not enough. So, you know, due to current trend, many private companies, including global companies, just began acting for disability inclusive business. It's not only employment, but also, you know, product and services. But it's just begun, so it may take a little bit more time to change. But some of the company, you know, announced that they try to make accessible product. So, so again, it takes time a little bit. And as a person with disability, I'm very much welcome the current situation, but of course it's not good enough. And of course, do not forget, we are the consumers as well. And including the number of families, it will be big percentage of, you know, human population as the consumers. So it's very important to put the product the accessible things. And now I work at the Deloitte, Japan. As Michiko said, we are working very hard on DEI social issues, of course, including disability issues. You know, I believe when companies change, the society changes. Now, you know, it's time for multi-sector collaboration to get the good innovation and result. I hope our company have a chance to work organizations like ESCAP and ILO in the future. Thank you. I hope this is in okay answers. Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful answer, Mr. Sapato. It's straight from the heart. I think the story of Deloitte Japan is something that we're going to repeat, echo, and maybe it's something that we hope we'll learn from. We definitely look forward to engaging more closely with you. It's not just ILO and ESCAP, but a lot of people in the room who are inspired by you. All the best to you. More power to you, please. Please be online, ma'am, just in case some of our audience would also like to come back. I'd like now to move to Mr. Murtaza Khan. Mr. Khan, any reflections from you briefly on what you've heard from others, and maybe one message that you'd like to drive home to this audience?
Sure. Since it's around policy, what we see in Bangladesh, there is the legislation and policy versus implementation gap. So that certainly needs to be covered. And one of the ways we are seeing that happening to a sense is also the influence of development partners and multilateral lending institutions. To give you a quick example, if we look at the enablers for inclusion in a sustainable manner, things like accessible transportation is very important. We just had the metro rail introduced in Dhaka, which is the first time such a train system has been included in the country. And initially, when the disability advocates were speaking to local government about just a simple thing of making the platform the same level as the train, there was resistance or questions such as, oh, how many users will we ultimately have? Now, what the advocates did was then go to JICA and say, look, you are funding this. Can you please ensure inclusion happens and accessibility, universal design is accounted for? And lo and behold, it is one of the most accessible pieces of infrastructure we have in the country. And similarly, a good practice we're seeing now is in many of the large development sector funded programs are having inclusion targets. And just ensuring that those are designed appropriately for inclusion to happen, I think can make a meaningful change. In our context, especially a lot of focus on skills development, entrepreneurship development. So those need to have adequate provisions for people with disabilities with the necessary room to make the technical assistance go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you for a brilliant, short, but extremely focused response from you. And I think we've seen the impact of our discussions even with multilateral development banks like ADB. I mean, the impact that it would have when they make their lending for infrastructure fully inclusive. And I think your example just proves that. Ms. Methavi, it's my turn to you for your final messages that you have in 2 minutes. You had so many great examples.
For me, I totally agree with Sinet Montian. I think if the policy provide more incentive for software business who consider more about accessibility, similar as a law that mandate the building in Thailand to have accessible in order to ask for license, the large software company in Thailand, they will change. And it means that they will consider more about accessibility. And also it's like, I think this can start with the government procurement, because government procurement is a large budget in this country. And if the government, they change how do they make the procurement and they mandate the company that consider more about accessibility, I think it can make a lot of impact. And every company in Thailand are willing and incentivized to make a change.
Very much, Ms. Methavi. Last but not least, Joni, yours is the last word for this panel.
Thank you. First, I'd encourage the ongoing support of forming more national and regional business and disability networks in order to encourage more businesses to expand their inclusion of persons with disabilities across their companies and through their supply chains. And ILO would be pleased to explore new collaborations if your country is not yet having its business and disability network, and potentially doing this so in collaboration with ESCAP in the region. And then secondly, and finally, I just wanted to highlight, because it's the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, I'd like to raise the issue of violence and harassment at work in particular. And why? Because our data shows that 1 in 5 persons has experienced violence or harassment at work. And we know that persons with disabilities, in particular women with disabilities, face different forms of violence and harassment and are at a higher risk due to discrimination. So we've got a brief on this issue. We've also got a convention, the Violence and Harassment Convention, that gives guidance. And I would call on employers and all stakeholders not only to implement non-discrimination, your non-discrimination policies, which most of you have already. So implementation, but also following guidance on the Violence and Harassment Convention can help for more and better inclusion, and calling upon countries in the region as well to ratify. And if you can help support that effort, that can also be very critical. Thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Joni, for really reinforcing also the complementary messages and the point about the 16 days of action. I think that's to be kept in mind. I have now the honor to open the floor for questions from both within this room and the large audience online. So please put your board up to make a very short intervention or a question. Yes, I have the distinguished delegate from Maldives, but I will be looking for others. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and the distinguished panelists. Let me begin by thanking you and ESCAP for organizing this event. The Maldivian government acknowledges the significance of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. We appreciate the global and regional efforts to ensure the full inclusion and empowerment of persons with disabilities. Mr. Chair and distinguished panelists, the government of President Dr. Mohamed Muiz has announced its plans to develop and implement a dedicated policy aimed at enhancing employment opportunities for persons with disabilities. This strategic initiative underscores the government's recognition of the importance of fostering inclusivity in the workforce, ensuring that persons with disabilities have equal access to meaningful employment opportunities. By prioritizing this aspect in its early policy announcements, the government signals a proactive approach to promoting the rights and welfare of persons with disabilities, whereby setting the stage for a more inclusive and equitable society in the Maldives. Mr. Chair and distinguished panelists, persons with disabilities is a protected class under Article 17 of the Maldivian Constitution, which prohibits discrimination. The Maldives has taken significant strides in establishing a robust legal framework to protect the rights of persons with disabilities. In this regard, the Disability Act of the Maldives enshrines the rights of persons with disabilities, addressing issues ranging from accessibility to education, employment, and healthcare. Numerous social protection initiatives are being carried out to enhance the overall quality of life for persons with disabilities. This includes the monthly financial assistance provided on an individual basis, which was incremented in June 2023 to better alleviate the economic challenges faced by persons with disabilities. Additionally, the government provides financial assistance targeting areas such as therapy services, medical care, assistive technology, prescription drugs, and psychological profiling. Mr. Chair and distinguished panelists, the Maldives demonstrates its commitment to fostering a right-based approach to disabilities by ensuring the alignment of domestic policies with international standards, including the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We also actively engage in collaborative efforts to advance the rights of persons with disabilities, given the pressing need for a collective and concerted approach to address related issues. By contributing to the discourse on disability inclusive development, we strive to be an active participant in the ongoing global and regional dialogue. On this International Day of Persons with Disabilities, we stand united with the global community in our dedication to fostering inclusivity, understanding, and equal opportunities for all. We further reaffirm our commitment to promote the rights and well-being of persons with disabilities at all fronts. Before I conclude, I would like to thank the distinguished panel for their valuable insights and would like to ask the panel to share their views on how to better collaborate to promote disability-inclusive businesses in the region. I thank you.
Thank you very much to the permanent representative of Maldives for really sharing the great news that disability inclusion is at the top of the priority of the new government, and we look forward to supporting you in any way that you may wish. But it's great news, and we will come back to the panel on the question that you've asked. Are there any more questions from the floor? We have some from online. Yes, ma'am. Beatrice, back? Yes.
Hi,
Identify yourself, Beatrice.
my name is Beatrice. I'm also a person with disability and autistic woman, and I also am an entrepreneur. One of my questions is regarding the startup ecosystem, which I'm part of, and I'm actually directing this to Ms. Joni. One of the largest barrier for entrepreneurs with disabilities is the first 5 years of bootstrapping a business, where it's not recognized the additional cost of running a business as a person with disability. And because of that, we are largely ousted from a lot of VC fundings. And you can't wait for the government or any national policies to actually recognize this. So what are the private or what are the best case studies at the moment that's actually looking at the inclusion of us into the business network as well? Because it's well and easy to say that's the network together, but getting that VC funding is actually very vital for how we actually going to grow up into either be a unicorn or a unicorn. But there's additional cost to running that business, and it's exponentially higher because of the lack of accessibility.
Thank you very much for that very focused question, Ms. Beatrice. Is there anybody else from the floor here? We can, while you're reflecting, maybe we can come back to the panel. We had one question from online, from Nedar India, who had questions about how they are working in India and they want to know how they can become part of the business network. Is there a network in India and how can they be part of it? Perhaps, therefore, to answer the question from Nedar India, as well as from me, Ms. Beatrice, I'll maybe ask Joni, followed by Mr. Murtaza, to quickly respond.
Thank you for the question, and very pertinent. As an enterprise, an entrepreneur at the national level, welcome to join networks. And from the Bangladesh experience, you can talk more about the national experience. So we're looking for new members, companies of all sizes and types, to join the network. If you're based here, Beatrice?
I'm based in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur.
Malaysia. We don't have, maybe you'll be a champion helping us to start up the network in Malaysia. Be happy to connect afterwards. So companies can can reach out. I'd be happy to provide information, and businesses of all types are welcome. So yes, on the financing side, that's not really the role of companies, but certainly access to markets through networking can be one of the benefits of being around the table with other businesses interested in inclusion. And then on the India example, we do have an India Business and Disability Network at the national level, and we'd be happy to put you in touch with them directly to introduce you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Murtaza, do you have any additional insight?
Sure, just very briefly to add to what Ms. Simpson was saying about getting into the supply chain of these larger companies. We are seeing this happening, particularly from SMEs in Africa. So it's an example from there. One of the members of the ILO GBDN was presenting this at the last GBDN meeting, where a lot of people, well, it's an example from agriculture, but maybe it applies here, where they've gone into the supply chains of Coca-Cola, Diageo, these large companies as suppliers. And these are, smallholder farmers who are now being able to get into that value chain. So to add to that point, certainly being part of the ecosystem of these larger companies would be valuable. And in Bangladesh, the work towards SMEs and supporting entrepreneurs with disabilities is still at an early stage, I would say. So we don't have as much real world example or data to share on that, but we see it as an increasing area of interest. For example, we are working on an ILO program now where the idea is some of the people who will go through upskilling, a certain number would go into waged employment, and a certain other portion we would try to see how to support with entrepreneurial support. So I think there are initiatives starting in this area, but a lot more that needs to be done.
Thank you very much, Murtaza. We also have from the floor, the Indonesia Association of Women with Disabilities, the representative here. Would you like to take the floor, ma'am, now? Is there a microphone that can be given?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Rina Prasarani. I'm from the Indonesian Association of Women with Disabilities. This is just about a reflection from Indonesia. I know that I've been witnessing the concept of disability, that it is an evolving concept. So I was witnessing when it was being having the medical approach, charity approach, social approach, and then the right-based approach. So I'm happy to be here and to share with you all that from year to year, I know it is not perfect yet, but things are getting better and better. And I believe that it is a work of us, the fighting for the rights of the person with disabilities, where when it was not before discussed this before in this kind of forum, like in business sector. It was not like it is possible when it was like a few years ago, but now it is being discussed in all aspects of area, including the business sector. Apart from like other issues like climate change and everything. But the sad part is that when people are more and more talking about disability, and for a sudden there are a lot of disability experts who are not disabled at all. So and now it's becoming more and more JETSI. It is on the table, discussed, and suddenly there are a lot of JETSI analysts who is not women and not disabled people. So I would like to, from this forum also, I would like to impose the importance of the participation, the meaningful participation of women with disabilities, including in business sector, because I know that there is, women with disabilities are more vulnerable to get into the formal work. So a lot of them, especially in the developing country like Indonesia, they are more into the informal sector. And so a lot of program has been designed for them, but the meaningful participation is not there yet. I mean, they are invited, they are being heard, but after that, they are left behind still. So I really appreciate this forum, and I also would like to raise up the just into the business sector on right-based with meaningful participation of women with disabilities, and also in the this we know that we are getting into the technology era where technology is considered masculine and also far from the women issues, and also women with disabilities are still left behind. And so I would like to also say that there are infrastructure for technology, including the internet access, has to be developed well, and also the interface for the product has to be accessible for women with disabilities, and also consulted with women with disabilities, because we have special needs on using their product, especially for the technology product. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I think while I think we need more and more people involved to support for the inclusion of persons with disabilities, at the same time, let us not forget that we need to involve the people who really have the lived experience. So involving, constantly keeping in mind nothing about us without us. In fact, nothing without us, I would say. It's not, I think every area we need to involve persons with disabilities. And I think that we need to constantly keep that in mind. Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? Yes, please identify yourself, ma'am, and please make a brief.
My name is Ashraful Nahar Mishti. I am working in Bangladesh. I am the founder executive director of Women with Disabilities Development Foundation, WDDF. I have very specific question to Mortuja Bhai. Do you have the policy which can incorporate women with disabilities in the business network? Is there any flexible conditions? Because WDDF make 96 entrepreneur of women with disabilities this year, 2023. But how I could include them in your network if they have very low capacity, not millionaire? Okay, so I need to know what is in your policy, how you are making flexibility for women and girls with disabilities entrepreneur to include your network. Thank you so much.
I think that's a straight question to you, Ms. Moses.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Good to see you, Mishti Appa. So we've obviously till date largely been working with bigger companies, and typically you'll see business and disability networks do that. However, recently we are certainly feeling the need to engage more with SMEs, CSMEs as well. So I certainly think there's a space for it. We haven't solved all the issues that are there, so I certainly welcome a conversation. I'm very pleased to share that we are soon announcing a partnership with the SME Foundation as well, so we can see how we can work much more on it. I mean, in terms of inclusion of women with disabilities, at least we've seen in the RMG sector that it's happening from a waged employment perspective. But as you were saying, in terms of the level of the entrepreneurs and the quality of the products, and going back to the value chain perspective of it, ultimately ensuring that we can get products that companies which are bigger in the country are willing to accept and work with will be very key. So maybe we can look at some innovations in terms of how they can also provide their expertise and build more capacity of the entrepreneurs you're speaking about. But we need to do more in this area. So thank you for raising that, but I don't have a perfect answer for you as yet.
Thank you for your honesty and also kind of showing the way out. I think one of what happens, the sidelines and the margins, the networks and the connections that we make in meetings like this is actually some of the big benefits that we see from this conversation. And thank you so much for both your question and your response. We do have one information from the online, and already I think our ESCAP disability champion is informing us that the Nepal disability, they're establishing a disability business network in Nepal. And Joni, maybe that's something of interest to you. And so we will ask them to contact you, and in terms of their network being kind of subsumed under the ILO umbrella. That actually, if there are no more questions, I don't see any more questions online, and also on the floor. We have a very interesting segment still remaining, the prize-winning more short films on disability. And so it gives me great pleasure to thank all our panelists for sharing the insights and suggestions for promoting disability inclusive business and your insights. It's been an exciting discussion, and you've been so focused and so complementary to each other. May I request for a big round of applause for all of them, including our participants online from Deloitte, Japan. All of you have been very inspiring. So I'm confident that all of us are going to reflect on the discussions, and we, for one, are going to go back with a lot more ideas. Over to you, Jessica, to lead us through the next part of our program.
Can we have another round of applause for the panel, please? So as I invite the panelists to take their seats, I want to also thank Dr. Tata for his excellent moderation of this fruitful panel discussion. And dear participants, as Dr. Tata mentioned, we will now move to our third agenda item, which is focused on screenings from the Focus on Ability Film Festival. And so with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ryan Goodwin, the Creative Director of Focus on Ability Film Festival, to share some remarks and introduce the films. Please, Mr. Goodwin.
Good afternoon. It's an absolute privilege to be here. I would like to thank you and ESCAP for having me here, and the Australian Embassy for inviting me along. The Focus on Ability Film Festival has been around for the last 15 years. The festival is all about promoting the skills and abilities of people with disability to create a more inclusive world. So the festival has received now over these years more than 3,000 entries from 45 countries. We're doing our best to promote everything to do with the festival, and I mean, I'll just give you a brief snapshot of some of the things that we have achieved over the last 12 months. So we've had screenings all around Australia. We've got partnerships with the national television networks that broadcast a bunch of these films. We had a screening event in New Zealand. In May, we launched a partnership with the Australian Embassy here in Thailand to increase the festival's presence, and we've created a 2023 Thailand Best Film Prize, which we get to hand out today. We presented the festival at the Association of People Supporting Employment First at a conference in Columbus, USA. And the purpose for that is then to show people that film and the films from the film festival can be used to break down barriers, especially within the employment sector. We had an Autism in Focus event in Los Angeles. We launched the 2023 festival, which saw over 400 submissions, 310 finalists, and they came from 17 different countries, including India, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, and Hong Kong. We had over 1 million film views on our website. In October, we launched in Kenya, in Nairobi. We had a Malawi Awards. We had Ethiopia Awards event. And we're looking at increasing our presence here in Asia and the Pacific. So I would love to speak to different organizations about how we can partner together to increase the presence within your organizations and within your countries. So that way we can increase the awareness and skills of people with disability. Because the thing is with the festival is that they're short films and documentaries, so less than 5-minute snapshots about the lives of people with disability. And I find that the way that we break down barriers is through education, and these snapshots of films and understandings can really do that. So today we get to showcase 3 films from the festival, one being the best Australian short film, one being the best Thailand film. And it's so great to see the representatives from that film here today. And then we also have a film from India as well. So 3 brief snapshots that you'll see, but we have over 3,000 films on our website. We have the biggest disability film database in the world at focusonability.com.au. I invite people to get onto that. They can check out the database. They can share the films. They can be in touch with me if you would like to have screenings that we can provide the resource and content for. So I think it might be best now to check out some of those films, and hopefully you enjoy them as much as we do. Thank you.
Let's go, Buster. Let's go. Oh, let's go, Buster. I had a good one. Okay, it's just the replay. That's 30:15. It's time. It's all tied up.
Leah, can I come in, please?
No, leave me alone. I'm trying to go to sleep.
Leah, it's time to wake up. Leah, it's time to get up. Come on, Leah, you sleepyhead.
Oi, cheeky monkey.
Come on, Leah. It's 12 o'clock. Where do you go every Friday night?
When I tell you, if you stop that.
Okay.
On Friday night, I hear this voice.
Whose voice?
It's in my head. It tells me to walk.
Where to?
I don't know. I just go. Then I get to that place. There's people waiting for me there. They're in pain.
What do you do after that?
I get really tired. I can't remember what happens. Happy now?
Leah, I'm in a lot of pain. Can you please heal me?
No, I'm too tired.
Please, Leah. No, I can't heal her.
Are you feeling much better?
Much better, thanks.
എല്ലാ മനുഷ്യരും ഓട്ടത്തിലാണ്. ജീവിതത്തിന്റെ രണ്ടറ്റവും കൂട്ടിമുട്ടിക്കാൻ രാവും പകലുമില്ലാതെ നാം ഓരോരുത്തരും പൊരുതുകയാണ്. എത്ര എത്ര മുഖങ്ങൾ, എത്ര എത്ര ജീവിതങ്ങൾ, നമുക്ക് മുന്നിലൂടെ കടന്നു പോകുന്നു. ചിലപ്പോഴെങ്കിലും നമ്മൾ ചിന്തിച്ചു പോവാറില്ലേ, ഒരു ദിവസത്തിൽ 24 മണിക്കൂർ തികയുന്നില്ലെന്ന്, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈ ജോലിയെല്ലാം തീർക്കാൻ ഒരു കൈ കൂടി ലഭിച്ചിരുന്നെങ്കിലെന്ന്. എന്നാൽ ദൈനംദിന കാര്യങ്ങൾ പോലും ചെയ്യാൻ കഴിയാത്ത എത്ര പേർ നമുക്കിടയിലുണ്ടെന്ന് നിങ്ങൾക്കറിയാമോ? ലോകത്ത് 1.3 ബില്യൺ ആളുകൾ വിവിധ തരം ചെറുതും വലുതുമായ വൈകല്യങ്ങളാൽ ജീവിക്കാൻ പ്രയാസപ്പെടുന്നവരാണ്. അതായത് ലോക ജനസംഖ്യയുടെ ഏകദേശം 16% ജനങ്ങൾ. നിങ്ങളിപ്പോ കരുതുന്നുണ്ടാവും, ഞാൻ എന്തിനാണ് ഇതൊക്കെ പറയുന്നതെന്ന്, അല്ലേ? കാരണമുണ്ടല്ലോ. ആ മുൻപ് പറഞ്ഞ 16%കാരുണ്ടല്ലോ, അതിൽ പെടുന്ന ഒരാളാണ് ഞാനും. അതെ, ഐ ആം എ നോ ഹാൻഡ് പേഴ്സൺ. ഐ ആം ഡിഫറെന്റ്ലി ഏബിൾഡ്. എന്നെ എനിക്കറിയുന്ന പോലെ ഞാൻ തന്നെ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് പരിചയപ്പെടുത്താം. ഞാൻ പ്രണവ്, വയസ്സ് 24. ഇന്ത്യയിലെ പ്രകൃതി കനിഞ്ഞു നൽകിയ സൗന്ദര്യമുള്ള ഗോഡ്സ് ഓൺ കൺട്രി എന്ന് വിശേഷിപ്പിക്കാറുള്ള കൊച്ചു സംസ്ഥാനമായ കേരളത്തിലാണ് ഞാൻ ജനിച്ചത്. ഇടത്തരം തൊഴിലാളി കുടുംബത്തിൽപ്പെട്ട ദിവസക്കൂലിക്ക് മരപ്പണിക്കാരനായ ഒരു അച്ഛന്റെയും അമ്മയുടെയും 2 മക്കളിൽ ഇളയ മകനായാണ് ഞാൻ ജനിച്ചത്. അവരുടെ സ്വപ്നങ്ങളെയും പ്രതീക്ഷകളെയും എത്രത്തോളം പുറകോട്ടടിച്ച് കാണും എന്റെ ജനനമെന്ന് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഊഹിക്കാൻ കഴിയുമല്ലോ. 2 കൈകളുമില്ലാതെ ജനിച്ച കുഞ്ഞിന്റെ ഭാവി എന്താകുമെന്നറിയാതെ, ഇനി എന്തു ചെയ്യണമെന്നും അറിയാതെ അവർ വിധിക്ക് മുൻപിൽ പകച്ചുപോയ ദിവസങ്ങളായിരുന്നു അത്. 24 വർഷങ്ങൾക്ക് മുൻപ് ഇന്ന് കാണുന്ന ചികിത്സാ സൗകര്യങ്ങളോ പരിശീലന സൗകര്യങ്ങളോ ചിന്തിക്കാൻ പോലും കഴിയില്ലായിരുന്നു. എന്നാൽ എല്ലാ പ്രതിബന്ധങ്ങൾക്ക് മുന്നിലും തളരാതെ എന്റെ രക്ഷിതാക്കൾ അവർക്കാവുന്ന രീതിയിലൊക്കെ എന്റെ ദൈനംദിന ജീവിതത്തെ മുന്നോട്ട് നയിക്കുവാനുള്ള പരിശീലനങ്ങൾ തുടർന്നുകൊണ്ടേയിരുന്നു. അതുപോലെ എന്നെ ഒപ്പം നടത്തിയ സഹോദരനും എന്റെ പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട അധ്യാപകരും എന്റെ ശാരീരികമായ പരിമിതികളെ മറികടക്കാൻ എന്നും ഒപ്പമുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഞാനായത് ഒറ്റയ്ക്കല്ല. ഈ നാടും സമൂഹവും ഞാൻ പഠിച്ച എന്റെ വിദ്യാലയങ്ങളും എല്ലാം എന്റെ സാമൂഹ്യ ഇടപെടലുകൾക്കും മുന്നോട്ടുള്ള ജീവിതത്തിനും കരുത്ത് പകർന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ടൊക്കെ തന്നെയാണ് ഇന്നൊരു ബിരുദധാരിയായി നിങ്ങളുടെ മുന്നിൽ സ്വന്തം കാലിൽ നിൽക്കാൻ എനിക്ക് കഴിയുന്നത്. ഞാൻ എന്തിനാണ് ഇതൊക്കെ നിങ്ങളോട് പറയുന്നതെന്ന് ഇപ്പോഴും നിങ്ങൾക്ക് തോന്നുന്നുണ്ടോ? കാരണം എന്നെ കാണുന്ന, എന്നെ കണ്ട നിങ്ങളിൽ നിങ്ങൾക്കുണ്ടെന്ന് കരുതിയ ചില പരിമിതികളെങ്കിലും പരിമിതികളല്ല എന്ന് തിരിച്ചറിയുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഞാനൊരു വിജയമാണ്, വലിയ വിജയം.
ครูหนูบอกแล้วเนี่ยพูดด้วยก็ไม่ยอมพูด
เริ่มจากถ้าปกติได้ทำอย่างนี้
ไม่ว่าแกเลิกทำตัวไร้สาระได้เลยนะมัวแต่ไปเล่นเป็นเด็กกับเด็กพิการได้แล้วอย่างนี้แกจะสอบเข้ามหาลัยได้ไหมอย่าให้แม่เห็นอีกนะไม่ได้พวกคุณไม่ได้ยินเสียงของฉันไม่ใช่เพราะฉันพูดไม่ได้แต่เพราะพวกคุณไม่ได้ฟังฉันก่อนหน้านี้พวกคุณเห็นสุดยอดนักเต้นแต่ตอนนี้สิ่งที่คุณกำลังเห็นคือเด็กพิการคนหนึ่งคุณมองข้ามสิ่งที่ฉันมีแต่มองเห็นสิ่งที่ฉันขาดฉันไม่ได้ต้องการให้คุณมาสงสารสิ่งที่ฉันและคนพิการทุกคนต้องการคือการรับฟังพวกเราด้วยหัวใจให้โอกาสพวกเราได้ใช้ชีวิตปกติได้แสดงความสามารถที่เรามีฉันอยากให้ทุกคนรับฟังฉันเหมือนที่เพื่อนคนหนึ่งของฉันรับฟังฉันด้วยหัวใจและคุณจะได้ยินเสียงพูดของฉันเสียงที่ออกจากใจแม้มันอาจจะไม่เหมือนเสียงที่คุณพูดแต่ถ้าคุณรับฟังฉันคุณก็จะได้ยินเหมือนที่เพื่อนของฉันได้ยินฉันอยากขอบคุณเองที่รับฟังฉันและทำให้ฉันได้มายืนตรงนี้ยืนในจุดที่เสียงของฉันจะดังพอให้ทุกคนได้ยิน
What wonderful films. And I would now like to invite Ms. Julia Feeney, Permanent Representative to ESCAP for Australia, Mr. Patrick Mayer, Disability Champion of the Australian Embassy, and Mr. Ryan Goodwin from the Focus on Ability Film Festival to the front to present an award. Yes, go ahead and join.
Thank you.
So as you would have just seen on the screen, some familiar faces here. A big congratulations on and big thank you for submitting a film to our festival. It's a real pleasure to have a Best Thailand film, the very first time we've ever done this, based off a partnership with the Australian Embassy. So big congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for our chance to present my film and my purpose. I want to propose. We want to show for everyone see this the sound of blooming flower. You don't hear the sound of blooming before this, but now you hear this sound of blooming flower. Yeah, thank you so much.
And I think we can't wait to see your film next year.
So, thank you. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much to the Australian Embassy and to Focus on Ability Film Festival for bringing these inspirational films to the commemoration again this year. Excellencies, distinguished participants and friends, this brings us to the conclusion of our commemoration for today. Thank you very much for your participation. I hope you have been inspired and learned as much as I have. Please join us outside in the hall for refreshments, and thank you once again and have a wonderful day.